All right, so today we're diving into something that I know has captured a lot of imaginations out there. And I know that because you've sent in a ton of really cool texts all about it.
Oh, yeah.
It's time travel.
Time travel classic.
Yeah, and we've got like the whole spectrum here,
Yeah.
wild theories alongside how it shows up and like movies and books and all that stuff.
That's fascinating. Just looking at what you shared.
Yeah.
Right away, you see this sort of push and pull, right?
Yeah.
Like this really human desire to kind of mess with time,
Yeah.
to go back and revisit things. And then you hit all these roadblocks,
Oh, yeah.
like these huge scientific and logical obstacles
Mm.
as soon as you try to make it real.
Yeah.
So what we want to do in this deep dive is really get into that for like, why are we so drawn to this idea?
Yeah.
And then what is the science, the possibilities, even the impossibilities and all the fiction?
Yeah.
Tell us about this whole time travel thing.
Okay, so let's start with that fascination then, because honestly, going through all the texts you guys sent in,
Yeah.
it's not just one thing, right?
No,
It's not just one thing that draws people to it.
Right.
I noticed this thing over and over, this like deep desire to go back and fix something,
Right.
like a regret, or just to be there for some big historical event.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one of the texts even talked about going back to unsend an embarrassing text message.
Oh, totally. Who hasn't thought about that, right?
I know, I have, for sure.
But I think there's more to it, too. You know,
Yeah,
it's not just about wanting a do-over.
yeah,
Like underneath that, I think it's about how much we don't like.
yeah.
That time only moves forward. It's
Mhm.
relentless, and all our choices, they have these consequences that we can't take back.
Yeah,
And it's a core human experience, like this what if thinking.
yeah.
You constantly replay things in your head with different outcomes, and time travel, it's like the ultimate escape from that.
Totally.
Like time doesn't have to be a straight line.
And it's that, like, the sheer scale of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
As I was reading through these texts,
Mhm.
the possibilities are just endless.
Yeah. Be anywhere at any point in history.
Mhm.
Like you said, pyramids, dinosaurs. I mean,
Right.
it's almost too much. It's
Yeah.
hard to even imagine.
So I got to ask you, listener, if you had that chance right now,
Yeah.
where would you go?
What would be that first stop?
It's a great question to think about. Like, what is it that really drives that curiosity?
Right.
Is it about fixing something personal in your own past?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it something bigger,
Yeah.
like a need to understand the whole universe's timeline?
Yeah.
Unlock some secrets of the universe.
Mm.
From what you guys sent in, it seems like it's both of those things.
A bit of both. Yeah, definitely.
A powerful mix.
All right. So we've talked about the why. Now let's get into the how.
Okay.
Or maybe the someday, if ever, as a lot of you said, because we are
Oh.
talking about some pretty mind-bending science.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like this whole idea that time isn't this fixed thing, which a lot of you pointed to, like Einstein's work really
Yes.
kind of blew that all up.
Yeah. What's so groundbreaking about Einstein's theory of relativity,
Yeah.
and the texts explain this really well, is it just completely changed how we see time.
Yeah.
Like, it's not this absolute universal thing. It's relative,
Right.
which leads to things like time dilation,
Okay.
where time passes differently depending on how fast you're moving or the gravity.
Right.
And that's not just some theory.
Yeah.
It's improving.
Like how?
Like astronauts on the International Space Station.
Right.
They actually age a tiny bit slower
Whoa. That's wild.
than people on Earth.
That's why.
Time dilation happening right now.
Okay, so we see that happening in the real world.
Yeah.
But going backwards,
That's the tricky part.
that's where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
Because then we're talking about like wormholes and this
Yeah.
like exotic matter stuff that I saw in a lot of the texts.
Yeah. Exotic matter.
I mean, that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie.
it kind of does, right?
Yeah.
But there's actual science behind it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Kip Thorne,
Okay.
he did this work on wormholes. And they're like these theoretical tunnels
Okay.
through space-time,
Correct.
like shortcuts connecting different points in space or even different times.
So how would that even work?
Well, that's where the exotic matter comes in.
Right.
Think of it like matter with anti-gravity.
Yeah, okay.
It pushes instead of pulling.
So the opposite of...
Totally different from anything we see in the universe right now.
Okay, so...
The problem is
Yeah.
we have zero proof it exists
Oh, wow.
and no idea how to make it if it does. So, yeah, the theory's cool,
Yeah,
but making it happen,
that's a whole other thing.
huge hurdles.
Okay, so then we've got another wrinkle here, and a lot of you brought this up.
Oh, yeah.
The grandfather paradox.
Oh, the classic.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you go back in time, stop your grandparents from meeting.
Right.
You basically erase yourself.
Poof. It's a mind twister.
Yeah.
It really is.
And some of the texts even mention this many worlds interpretation as a possible way around that.
Yeah, that's a fascinating one.
Yeah.
So the grandfather paradox really shows how time travel to the past
Yeah.
can get really messy logically.
Yeah.
And the many worlds interpretation, it tries to solve that.
Okay.
It's pretty out there, though. So imagine this. Instead of one timeline,
Yeah.
every decision, every choice
Mm-hmm.
creates a new universe.
A whole new
A
universe.
whole new universe branching off.
Okay.
So you go back and mess with your grandparents.
Yeah.
You wouldn't erase yourself from your original timeline.
Right.
You just create a new reality
Okay.
where you never existed,
Okay.
leaving your original history untouched.
So there's like infinite realities happening.
In theory, yeah, potentially infinite universes.
Oh, wow. Okay. So the science is fascinating.
Yeah,
But it seems like we're a long way from like hopping in a DeLorean
right.
and going back to the past or whatever.
But that hasn't stopped pop culture, has it?
No, it hasn't. And I mean, you guys sent in so many examples.
I love it.
Like we've got Marty McFly's accidental family drama.
Back to the Future, yeah.
The epic scale of Interstellar.
So the black hole,
Yeah. Doctor Who all over the place.
Doctor Who and the TARDIS just like
Yeah.
zipping around.
And it's interesting because in these stories,
Yeah.
they can kind of ignore the real science sometimes.
Right.
It lets them explore these what-if questions.
Yeah,
Like, what would really happen if you could mess with time?
exactly. Like, what are the consequences?
Yeah.
Back to the Future plays with that, right?
Yeah.
Like unintended consequences.
Yeah. Changing little things, having big effects.
Ripples.
Yeah.
And Interstellar, they use all this crazy physics
Yeah.
to tell this amazing story.
Yeah.
And Doctor Who, they basically have their own rules.
Yeah.
It's about the story,
Yeah.
not so much the science.
Yeah. And then there's the paradox in the Terminator, which
Oh, yeah.
a lot of the texts talked about.
Skynet sending a robot back
Yeah, to kill Sarah Connor.
to kill Sarah Connor, but that could stop Skynet from even existing.
Right.
It's a loop.
It's a crazy loop.
Makes you think about cause and effect.
Yeah, like if time travel were possible, would cause and effect even work the same way?
Exactly.
It's wild.
That's what those stories love to play with.
Yeah, so that kind of brings us to the big question that I'm sure everybody's thinking.
A big one.
Could this ever actually be real?
Yeah.
I mean, reading through all the texts, it seems like the general consensus is like, not the way we understand things now,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still that little bit of like, maybe someday?
a little glimmer of possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think of Stephen Hawking's quote
Oh, yeah.
about, you know,
Yeah.
if time travel were real, where are all the tourists from the future?
Yeah, he put it so well.
Yeah.
And he's right. We don't see any obvious signs
Yeah.
of people coming back from the future,
Right.
which makes it seem unlikely.
Yeah.
But like a lot of you said in the texts, our understanding of the universe is still changing. We might discover something totally new
Yeah.
that opens up possibilities we haven't even thought of.
So you're saying never say never.
I wouldn't rule it out completely.
Okay, so one of you sent in a listener question that I thought was super interesting.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
It's like, if time travel were possible, wouldn't we already know about it?
That's a great question.
Right.
It really is.
Like, you think someone would have slipped up by now or
Yeah, you'd think so.
something.
Right.
But one of the texts mentioned this thing called the Novikov self-consistency principle.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like this idea that the laws of physics themselves would prevent paradoxes.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you went back in time,
Yeah.
you couldn't do anything that would change the present.
Right.
Your actions would already be part of history somehow.
So maybe
Yeah.
time travel is happening,
Maybe it's happening all the time.
but we just don't notice.
Right, like it's woven into the fabric of reality.
That's a weird thought.
It is.
Right? It is.
It's like this hidden layer of time
Yeah.
operating beneath the surface.
So we've explored the why, the how, and even the maybe of time travel.
All thanks to you guys sending in these amazing texts.
Yeah, honestly, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it stays science fiction or maybe someday becomes real,
Yeah.
it makes you think about some really big questions.
Fundamental question
Yeah, about the universe and our place in it.
about time itself.
Yeah,
It really pushes us to the limits of what we know,
it does.
making us question, like, what is time, really?
Yeah,
And what if we could control it?
and it's fuel for so many stories.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Infinite possibilities.
and creativity comes out of it.
So here's a thought for you, listener.
Okay.
Based on this Novikov self-consistency principle we talked about,
Mm.
what if some form of time influence has always been there?
Okay.
like subtly affecting things
Mhm.
without creating those big paradoxes.
Yeah.
How would we even know?
Yeah.
Think about it. Are there any strange events in your life?
Mm.
Any weird coincidences?
Yeah.
Things that just don't make sense?
Yeah.
Could those be hints?
Of something deeper?
Yeah, of a deeper temporal reality.
That we just haven't figured out yet.
Exactly.
That's a great question to leave us with.
Keep thinking about it.
Yeah, keep those big questions coming, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.